She thought she could replace me. I let her introduce the new woman before dropping the bomb that changed everything. There is a specific kind of erosion that happens in a marriage when you realize, slowly and then all at once, that you are not a partner but a placeholder. It doesn't come with screaming fights or slammed doors. It comes with silences. With glances exchanged across a dinner table that you are not meant to understand. With the quiet, creeping certainty that the person who promised to love you forever has been building an exit strategy since the day you said I do. My name is Lauren. I am 34 years old, and for 6 years, I was married to a man named Christopher. Before I tell you about the Christmas that ended everything, I need you to understand how I got there. Because the woman who smiled sweetly and said those words, "By the way, the house is in my name, not his," was not born in that moment. She was forged over years of small deaths. Years of being overlooked, undervalued, and slowly erased from a life I had built with my own 2 hands. I met Christopher when I was 26. He was 28, handsome in an unassuming way, with kind eyes and a laugh that made people want to be around him. He worked in pharmaceutical sales, charming, persuasive, the kind of person who could sell ice to an Eskimo. I was a project manager for a commercial real estate firm, analytical and driven, the kind of person who made spreadsheets for fun. We were opposites in ways that seemed romantic at first. He was spontaneous, I was methodical. He dreamed big, I made sure the foundations were solid. Our friends called us the perfect balance. His mother, Eleanor, called me something else. From the beginning, Eleanor made it clear that I was not what she would have chosen for her son. Christopher came from old money, not wealth that required working, but the kind of inherited comfort that comes from grandparents who invested wisely and parents who never had to worry about a mortgage. The family home was a sprawling colonial in a gated community. Christopher had never pumped his own gas until college. He'd never checked a price tag before ordering dinner. I came from the opposite. My parents were teachers. I paid my way through college with scholarships and student loans and a part-time job at a bookstore. The first time Eleanor asked me what my father did for a living, and I said teaches high school history, her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "How lovely," she said. "It must be wonderful to have a job that's so fulfilling." Fulfilling. Not lucrative. Not prestigious. Fulfilling, like a hobby. I let it slide. I let a lot of things slide. The wedding was the first battle. Eleanor wanted a grand affair at the country club, 300 guests, a live band, a 5-tier cake. I wanted something smaller, more intimate, more us. Christopher stayed neutral, which meant, effectively, that he stayed silent while his mother and I fought over centerpieces and guest lists and the color of the napkins. In the end, we compromised. Which is to say, Eleanor got most of what she wanted, and I got to choose the flowers. The house came next. I had been saving for years, long before I met Christopher, for a down payment on a home. I'd lived in tiny apartments, driven a car with no air conditioning, said no to vacations and dinners out and new clothes. By the time we got married, I had accumulated enough for a 20% down payment on a modest but beautiful house in a neighborhood I loved. Christopher had no savings. He had a car payment, credit card debt, and a lifestyle that required constant maintenance. He also had expectations. "My parents will want us to buy something in their neighborhood," he said, as we sat at my kitchen table looking at listings. "Something with space. For when we have kids." "Your parents' neighborhood is out of my price range." "Your price range?" "My down payment. The money I've been saving for years." He looked confused, genuinely confused, like the concept of a woman buying a house with her own money was foreign to him. "We can get a mortgage. Both of us." "Christopher, I have excellent credit and a solid down payment. You have debt and a credit score that makes lenders nervous. If we buy a house together, we're going to pay for it in higher interest rates and worse terms." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I'll buy the house. In my name. You can live there with me, contribute to the monthly expenses, and we'll figure out the rest as we go." He didn't like that. I could see it on his face, the discomfort, the bruised pride, the sense that something was being taken from him. My mother won't understand. Your mother doesn't need to understand. It's our life. Our finances. But Eleanor did find out. Of course she did. Christopher told her, probably while looking for sympathy, and she called me the next day. Lauren, I hear you're buying a house without my son's name on the deed. It's not without his name. It's in my name. Because I'm paying for it. But you're married. What's yours is his. That's not how assets work when they're acquired before marriage, Eleanor. She was quiet for a moment. Then, this isn't how a partnership functions. You're starting your marriage with secrets and separations. I'm starting my marriage with financial responsibility. Those are different things. We bought the house. My name only. Christopher moved in with a collection of expensive suits and a sense of entitlement that I mistook for confidence. The first year was good. The second year was harder. By the third year, I had stopped keeping track. The erosion happened slowly. Christopher's job required travel, conferences, client dinners, networking events that seemed to happen more and more frequently. I told myself it was normal. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that the perfume I sometimes smelled on his collar was just from hugging female colleagues goodbye. I was lying to myself, and I knew it. The signs were everywhere. Late nights. Missed calls. The way his phone was always face down on the table, always angled away from me. The way he'd step into the other room to take calls, his voice low and intimate. I confronted him once, gently. Christopher, is everything okay? Between us? Of course. Why wouldn't it be? You've been distant lately. Distracted. I've been busy. Work is insane right now. You know how it is. I did know. I also knew that busy was the oldest excuse in the book. I didn't push. That wasn't my style. I was the planner, the problem solver, the one who held things together. I told myself that if I just tried harder, loved better, made our home more welcoming, he would come back to me. He didn't. I started keeping a journal during the fourth year. Not because I wanted to document our marriage, because I needed somewhere to put the thoughts I couldn't say out loud. The entry started hopeful, then became uncertain, then became something else entirely. October 12th, Christopher came home at 2 a.m. again. Said he fell asleep at a friend's house. Didn't specify which friend. When I asked, he got defensive. Said I was interrogating him. I wasn't interrogating. I was asking. There's a difference. November 3rd, found a receipt in his pants pocket. Dinner at a restaurant I've never heard of. 2 glasses of wine. He said he was alone. Who orders 2 glasses of wine when they're alone? December 15th, he forgot our anniversary. Again. I made his favorite dinner. He came home at 9 p.m., ate 3 bites, said he wasn't hungry. I threw the rest in the trash. Cried in the bathroom so he wouldn't hear. I stopped writing after that. It was too painful to see the truth on paper. The holidays were always the worst. Eleanor hosted Christmas every year at the family home, the colonial in the gated community, with the catered food and the designer tree and the carefully curated family photographs that never included me. I went every year. I smiled, brought a hostess gift, and spent the evening being politely excluded from conversations I wasn't meant to hear. Christopher would disappear for hours at a time, and when I asked where he'd been, he'd say helping Mom in the kitchen or showing Uncle Frank the new car. I didn't believe him. But I didn't know what to do with my disbelief. The Christmas before last, I noticed something new. A photograph on the mantel that hadn't been there before, Christopher and a woman I didn't recognize, standing in front of a lake, both of them smiling. She was pretty. Dark hair, athletic build, the kind of woman who looked good in outdoor gear. Who's that? I asked Eleanor, pointing to the photograph. Oh, that's Victoria. She's been helping Christopher with a work project. Lovely girl. So accomplished. Lovely girl. So accomplished. Eleanor had never called me lovely or accomplished. What kind of work project? Oh, you know. Business things. I don't really understand it. She waved her hand dismissively. She's been at the house a few times. Christopher thinks very highly of her. Christopher thinks very highly of her. The words echoed in my head for days. I asked Christopher about Victoria that night, in the car on the way home. She's just a colleague, Lauren. Mom is being dramatic. She has a photograph of you two on her mantle. She puts photographs of everyone on the mantle. It doesn't mean anything. Eleanor said Victoria has been at the house. Your parents' house. Multiple times. She's been helping me with a presentation. We needed a quiet place to work. A quiet place. At your parents' house. Yes. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that I was being paranoid, that my insecurities were getting the best of me, that the marriage I'd been pouring myself into for years wasn't crumbling beneath my feet. But I didn't believe him. And that was the moment I knew something was terribly, irreparably wrong. The months between last Christmas and this one were a masterclass in pretending. I went to work. I came home. I cooked dinner, cleaned the house, walked the dog we'd adopted together. I smiled when friends asked how Christopher was doing. I said fine when they asked about our marriage. I was lying to everyone, including myself. Christopher's absences grew longer. His excuses grew thinner. He stopped coming home for dinner entirely, claiming that work demands required evening meetings and late-night calls. I stopped asking where he'd been. I stopped checking his phone, his pockets, his social media. What was the point? The truth was everywhere. I just didn't want to see it. I started therapy in September. Dr. Park, a gentle woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach, asked me why I'd come. Because I think my husband is having an affair. And I think his mother knows about it. And I think I've been pretending not to notice for years. And what do you want to do about it? I don't know. That's why I'm here. She nodded, made a note, and asked me to tell her about my marriage. I talked for an hour. About the early days, when Christopher was charming and attentive and made me feel like the center of his world. About the slow shift, the growing distance, the way he'd started looking at me like I was furniture. About Eleanor's constant criticisms, her passive-aggressive comments, her barely concealed disappointment that her son had married someone so beneath him. You've been carrying a lot, Dr. Park said. Alone. I didn't know who to tell. I didn't want to be the wife who complains about her husband. Wanting to be seen and valued in your marriage isn't complaining. It's the bare minimum. I started seeing Dr. Park every week. She helped me name the things I'd been ignoring, the gaslighting, the emotional neglect, the slow erosion of my self-worth. She helped me see that I wasn't crazy, wasn't too sensitive, wasn't asking for too much. Your husband has been absent from this marriage for a long time, she said. The question isn't whether he's having an affair. The question is what you're going to do about the fact that you're already alone. I thought about that a lot. Already alone. She was right. I'd been alone for years, eating dinner by myself, sleeping in a bed that felt too big, carrying the weight of a household that Christopher had checked out of long ago. The only thing left was the pretense. And I was tired of pretending. I started planning my exit in October. Quietly, carefully, the way I planned everything. I met with a lawyer, Denise, sharp and efficient, who specialized in high-net-worth divorces with complex asset divisions. The house is in my name alone, I told her. I bought it before the marriage, with funds that were entirely mine. He has no claim to it. Denise nodded, making notes. That's straightforward. What about other assets? Separate bank accounts. No joint credit cards. He has a car that's in his name, but I made no payments on it. So you're saying there's no marital property to divide? None. I was careful. I think part of me knew, even early on, that I couldn't trust him. Denise looked up from her notes. That's unusually foresight. Most people don't think about these things until it's too late. I'm a project manager. Planning is what I do. She smiled. Then this should be relatively simple. I'll have the papers ready. In the meantime, don't let him know what you're planning. If he suspects you're leaving, he might try to hide assets or make things difficult. I understand. I didn't tell Christopher about the lawyer. I didn't tell him about Dr. Park. I didn't tell him that I'd stopped loving him somewhere along the way, replaced by a cold, quiet certainty that I deserved better. I just waited. November passed. December arrived. Eleanor sent the Christmas invitation, the same one she sent every year, addressed to Christopher and guest, as if my name was too difficult to remember. I RSVP'd yes. I bought a hostess gift. I picked out a dress that made me feel powerful, burgundy, fitted, with a neckline that suggested confidence without revealing too much. Christopher noticed the dress. You look nice, he said, surprised, like he'd forgotten I was capable of looking nice. Thank you. New? Old? You just haven't noticed. He didn't respond. He didn't apologize. He just went back to his phone, scrolling through messages I wasn't allowed to see. I drove us to Eleanor's house that night. Christopher sat in the passenger seat, silent, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. I wondered what he was thinking. Whether he was nervous about whatever was about to happen. Whether he knew that this Christmas would be different. Probably not. Christopher had never been good at seeing what was right in front of him. Eleanor's house looked like a magazine spread. Garlands on the staircase, wreaths on every door, a 12-foot tree in the living room that probably cost more than my first car. The air smelled like pine and cinnamon and the kind of wealth that doesn't need to announce itself. I parked the car, took a breath, and walked inside. Christopher disappeared immediately, to help Mom in the kitchen, he said, though I'd never known him to help with anything in his life. I made my way through the crowd of relatives and family friends, smiling and nodding and pretending I belonged. Eleanor's sister, Patricia, cornered me by the fireplace. Lauren. How lovely to see you. How are things? Things are good. Busy. You know how it is. And Christopher? Is he here? He's helping Eleanor in the kitchen. Patricia raised an eyebrow. Helping? That's new. I laughed, the sound hollow. People change. Do they? She looked at me with something like sympathy, or maybe pity. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. The evening progressed as it always did. Drinks in the living room. Small talk with aunts and uncles who couldn't remember my name. Eleanor's annual toast, where she thanked everyone for coming and made pointed comments about family that somehow never included me. I stood in the corner, nursing a glass of wine, watching. Christopher was nowhere to be seen. Neither was Eleanor. I wondered what they were doing in the kitchen, plotting, probably, or preparing whatever surprise they had in store. The surprise came after the toast. Eleanor stood at the front of the room, her champagne glass raised, her smile wide and bright. Before dinner, she said, I have a special announcement. Some of you may know that Christopher has been working on a very important project this year. And I'm so pleased to say that he's had an amazing partner in that work, someone who has become like family to us. My heart started beating faster. Someone who has become like family. I'd like to introduce you all to Victoria. Victoria, dear, would you come here? The room parted like the Red Sea. A woman stepped forward, tall, slender, dark hair, red dress. The same woman from the photograph on the mantel. The same woman I'd seen in my husband's phone, in his texts, in the pieces of his life he'd hidden from me. Victoria smiled. Eleanor beamed. Victoria has been working closely with Christopher on the Johnson account, Eleanor continued. And we've just become so close. I wanted her to join us for Christmas. She doesn't have family nearby, and we couldn't let her spend the holiday alone. Working closely. Become so close. Doesn't have family nearby. I looked around the room. Saw the relatives exchanging glances. Saw the friends trying not to stare. Saw Christopher standing near the doorway, his face carefully neutral, his eyes fixed on Victoria. He didn't look at me. Not once. Victoria said something, I don't remember what. Something gracious, something humble, something designed to make her look like the victim of circumstance rather than the other woman in a married man's life. The room applauded. Polite, uncertain applause. Eleanor raised her glass. To Victoria. Welcome to the family. Welcome to the family. I set down my wine glass. I walked toward the center of the room. My heels clicked on the hardwood floor, loud in the sudden silence. Eleanor saw me coming. Her smile faltered, just for a moment. Lauren. There you are. I was just introducing Victoria. Isn't she lovely? She's lovely, I said. My voice was calm, steady, the voice I used in board meetings when I was about to make someone very uncomfortable. Victoria, this is Christopher's wife, Lauren. Victoria extended her hand. I shook it, held it a beat longer than necessary. It's so nice to meet you, Victoria. Eleanor has told me so much about you. All good things, I hope. All very interesting things. I turned to face the room. The relatives, the friends, the housekeepers hovering with trays of champagne. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting. Before dinner, I said, I just want to say something. A little update, since we're all sharing news. Eleanor's smile was frozen on her face. Christopher shifted uncomfortably behind me. Some of you know that Christopher and I have been living in a lovely house in Oak Park. It's been our home for the past few years, and I've been so proud of it. I paused. Let the words settle. What you might not know is that the house is in my name. Solely. I bought it before we were married, with money I saved from years of working. Christopher's name isn't on the deed. It never has been. The silence was absolute. I could hear someone breathing, shallow, quick breaths, from somewhere behind me. So when Eleanor mentioned that Victoria has been working closely with Christopher, and that she's become such a close part of the family, I just wanted to make sure everyone understood the full picture. Because if Christopher decides to pursue other arrangements, he'll be doing it from a house he doesn't own. I smiled. Sweetly. Innocently. By the way, the house is in my name, not his. The room froze. I have replayed that moment 1,000 times since that Christmas. The way Eleanor's face drained of color. The way Christopher's jaw dropped, then tightened. The way Victoria's eyes widened, then narrowed, then darted toward the door. The silence lasted maybe 5 seconds. It felt like an hour. Then chaos. Eleanor recovered first. She was a master of social recovery, after all. Her smile snapped back into place, though it didn't reach her eyes, and she laughed, a brittle, hollow sound. Well, Lauren, that's certainly practical of you. But surely you and Christopher have discussed how you'll handle assets if... There's nothing to discuss, Eleanor. The house is mine. The mortgage is mine. The equity is mine. Christopher is a guest in my home. I said it pleasantly, conversationally, like I was discussing the weather. Christopher flinched. A guest, he said, his voice low. Lauren, we're married. Are we? I tilted my head, still smiling. I wasn't sure. You've been spending so much time away. Working closely with Victoria on your big project. Victoria took a step back, her champagne glass trembling. I should go. No, please stay, I said. Eleanor went to so much trouble to include you. It would be a shame to waste all that effort. Christopher grabbed my arm, not hard, but firm enough to get my attention. Can we talk? Privately? I looked at his hand on my arm. Then I looked at his face. "Take your hand off me." He did. "Now," I continued, "I think dinner is waiting. Eleanor, shall we?" Eleanor didn't move. She was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Like I'd been a piece of furniture that had suddenly started speaking. "I think," she said slowly, "that perhaps we should postpone dinner. Give everyone a moment to." "A moment to what?" "Process that your son doesn't own the house he's been bragging about for years? Process that the big project he's been working on might be more than professional?" "Lauren, you're being dramatic." "Am I? You brought another woman to Christmas." "To my Christmas? You introduced her to the family like she was Christopher's new wife. And you expected me to sit there and take it?" The room was silent again. Even the housekeepers had stopped moving. "I've been taking it for 6 years, Eleanor." The passive-aggressive comments. The exclusion from family photographs. The way you talk about me like I'm not in the room. I've smiled, nodded, and let it slide because I loved your son and I wanted to make this work. My voice cracked on the last word. I hadn't meant for it to. But I'm done. I'm done being invisible in my own marriage. I'm done being the woman who works her ass off to provide a home while her husband spends his time and money on God knows what with God knows who. Christopher opened his mouth. I held up a hand. Don't. Whatever you're about to say, don't. He closed his mouth. I looked around the room, at the relatives who had never learned my name, at the friends who had always taken Eleanor's side, at the woman in the red dress who was inching toward the door. Merry Christmas, everyone. I walked out. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. The house, my beautiful house that I had paid for with years of sacrifice, felt like a crime scene. I checked into a hotel, ordered room service, and sat in the dark for a long time. My phone exploded. Christopher called 17 times. Texted 23 times. The messages ranged from apologetic to accusatory to desperate. Lauren, please come home. We need to talk. You humiliated me in front of my entire family. I love you. I'm sorry. Please. How could you do that to my mother? I'll do anything. Just come home. She was just a friend. Nothing happened. I swear. You're destroying our marriage over nothing. I read each message. I didn't respond. Eleanor called twice. I didn't answer. My mother called, confused, because someone had told her something about a scene at Christmas. I gave her the abbreviated version. I'm leaving him, Mom. Oh, honey. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She was quiet for a moment. Then, good. I never liked him. I laughed, the first real laugh I'd managed in months. His mother brought another woman to Christmas dinner and introduced her to the family like she was his new wife. Are you serious? Completely serious. Then burn it all down, sweetheart. You deserve better. I spent the next few days at the hotel, avoiding calls, avoiding social media, avoiding anything that reminded me of the life I was leaving behind. I talked to Denise, my lawyer, who assured me that the divorce would be straightforward. He has no claim to the house. No claim to your savings. No claim to anything you acquired before the marriage. And after the marriage? You have separate accounts. No joint assets. He can try to argue for alimony, but given the short duration of the marriage and his own earning capacity, it's unlikely to succeed. What about his debts? His alone. You're not responsible for them. I felt something loosen in my chest. Relief, maybe. Or the beginning of it. I went home on the 4th day. The house was empty. Christopher had taken some of his things, left others scattered around like he was planning to come back. I changed the locks, packed his remaining belongings into boxes, and texted him the address of a storage unit. Your things are at Secure Storage, Unit 214. The code is 7712. You have 30 days to pick them up. His response came immediately, "You're really doing this?" "Already done. I loved you, Lauren. You loved what I gave you. There's a difference." I didn't hear from him again for several weeks. The weeks after Christmas were a masterclass in watching someone fall apart. Christopher had never had to face consequences before. His parents had always been there to catch him, to pay his bills, to smooth over his mistakes, to remind him that he was special and deserving and not bound by the same rules as everyone else. I had been part of that safety net. I had provided the house, the stability, the illusion of a successful marriage. Without me, without the house, without the pretense, Christopher had nothing. His mother called me a week after I moved back into the house. "Lauren, we need to discuss this like adults." "Then act like an adult, Eleanor." She was quiet for a moment. "Then, Christopher is devastated. He can't eat, can't sleep. He's been staying with us, and he's a wreck." "That sounds like a personal problem." "You're his wife. You took vows." "I did. And he broke them. Multiple times, if I had to guess." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't." She sighed, the sound heavy with exasperation. "Victoria is just a friend. She's been helping Christopher with work. There's nothing inappropriate about their relationship." "Eleanor, you introduced another woman to your son at Christmas. In front of his wife. And you expected me to be okay with it." "I expected you to be gracious." "I've been gracious for 6 years. I'm done." "So that's it? You're throwing away your marriage because of one uncomfortable dinner?" "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm cleaning house." I hung up. Christopher's friends started calling. Not to check on me, to ask what had happened, to tell me I was being unreasonable, to suggest that maybe I should give him another chance. "He's really sorry, Lauren. He's been seeing someone else. 4 months, probably. And his mother knew." "We don't know that for sure." "I know it. And if you don't believe me, you're not my friend." Most of them stopped calling. The truth about Victoria came out slowly, piece by piece. A mutual friend mentioned that Victoria had been at Christopher's company events for over a year. Another friend recalled seeing them together at restaurants, at bars, at a weekend trip to the mountains that Christopher had told me was a work retreat. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I was just tired. Tired of being lied to. Tired of being the last to know. Tired of being the woman who believed the excuses because the truth was too painful to face. I filed for divorce in January. Christopher was served at his parents' house, which Eleanor later told me was deeply embarrassing for the family. I didn't care. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. It was straightforward, no children, no shared assets, no alimony. Christopher signed the papers without a fight, though his lawyer tried to argue that he was entitled to appreciation of assets during the marriage. Denise shot that down immediately. The house was purchased before the marriage. There's no evidence that Mr. Harrison contributed to its maintenance or improvement. Ms. Chen's separate property remains separate. The judge agreed. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in years. It's been a year since that Christmas. I'm sitting on the porch of my house, still in my name, still paid for with my money, watching the sun set over the neighborhood I chose. The garden is blooming. The windows are clean. The air smells like jasmine and possibility. Christopher moved back in with his parents. I heard through the grapevine that he's working part-time at a car dealership, that Victoria is no longer in the picture, that he's been telling anyone who will listen that I'm a cold, calculating woman who tricked him into marriage. I don't care what he says. I don't care what Eleanor says. I don't care what any of them say. I'm free. Therapy helped. Dr. Park, the same gentle woman I started seeing before the divorce, helped me unpack the years of gaslighting, the slow erosion of my self-worth, the way I'd convinced myself that being invisible was the same as being strong. You built a life around someone who never appreciated you, she said during one of our final sessions. And when you finally saw the truth, you didn't hesitate. That's not cold. That's survival. What if I never love again? I asked her. What if I'm too broken? Broken things can be mended. But you're not broken, Lauren. You're just different. And different isn't worse. It's just different. I think about Eleanor sometimes. About the look on her face when I said those words. By the way, the house is in my name, not his. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel triumphant either. I just feel resolved. Like I finally said something that needed to be said. I think about Christopher less and less. He was a chapter in my life, a long, painful chapter that I kept reading because I was afraid of what came next. But the next chapter turned out to be better than I could have imagined. I'm dating again. Casually, carefully, with no expectations. A man named Marcus, a high school principal, steady and kind, with eyes that crinkle when he laughs. He doesn't need me to save him. He doesn't need my money or my house or my stability. He just wants to spend time with me. Is this weird? He asked on our third date. Dating after a divorce? It's weird for both of us. He smiled. Then let's be weird together. I like him. I'm not in love, not yet, but I like him. And for now, that's enough. The house is still mine. I refinanced at a lower rate, painted the living room a color Christopher would have hated, and filled the guest room with books and plants and things that make me happy. Waffles, the cat I adopted last spring, is curled up on the couch, dreaming of whatever cats dream about. My mother came to visit last month. She walked through the house, ran her fingers over the walls, and smiled. You did this, she said. All of this. With your own hands. I had help. From who? I thought about it. The real estate agent who found me the house. The contractor who fixed the leaky roof. The friends who showed up with pizza and paintbrushes when I was too tired to ask. Dr. Park, who listened without judgment. Denise, who fought for me in court. From people who actually care about me, I said. She hugged me. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too. It's Christmas again. I'm not at Eleanor's house. I'm not at any house where I'm not wanted. I'm sitting in my living room, in front of a tree I decorated myself, with a cup of hot cocoa and a cat in my lap. Marcus is here. He's in the kitchen, making something that smells like cinnamon and cloves. His family is coming over tomorrow, his parents, his sister, his niece who is obsessed with unicorns. They're staying for a week. I'm nervous. Meeting a partner's family is always nerve-wracking, even when you're not a freshly divorced woman with a complicated past. But Marcus has assured me that his mother is nothing like Eleanor. She'll probably bring you a casserole, he said. And ask if you need help with anything. That's normal? Completely normal. She's a retired nurse. She can't help herself. I laughed. I'm laughing more now. It turns out that leaving a toxic marriage doesn't just remove the bad, it makes room for the good. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Lauren. It's Eleanor. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say that I was wrong. About you. About everything. I'm sorry. I stare at the message for a long time. Part of me wants to respond. To tell her that sorry doesn't undo 6 years of exclusion. To explain that her son's failures are a reflection of her parenting, not my inadequacy. To ask if she's told Christopher to get therapy, to take responsibility, to stop blaming me for his own mistakes. But another part, the part that has done the work, gone to therapy, learned to let go, just feels tired. Not angry. Not vindictive. Just tired. I delete the message. Marcus comes out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. Everything okay? Yeah. Just spam. He doesn't ask more. That's one of the things I love about him, he trusts me to share what I want to share, when I'm ready. Dinner's almost ready. You want to set the table? I stand up, stretch, and walk toward the kitchen. Waffles meows in protest, then settles back into his spot on the couch. The house is warm. The food smells good. The man I'm building a life with is waiting for me. I think about that Christmas, the one where Eleanor introduced Victoria, the one where I said those words that froze the room. I think about the woman I was then, hurt, angry, finally done pretending. I'm not that woman anymore. I'm someone new. Someone who knows her worth. Someone who will never again be invisible in her own life. The door Eleanor opened wasn't just an exit from her son's life. It was an entrance to mine. I walked through. And on the other side, I found myself. Which side of that story were you on? Let me know in the comments. And if you love diving into these Reddit rabbit holes with me, subscribe to Reddit Be Mine. We're building the best storytelling community on YouTube, and we'd love to have you. Click that sub button and stay tuned.